Hello ladies and gentle ladies, and welcome back to another Minecraft modding tutorial for Forge 1.20. And in this tutorial we are going to be creating a set of armor and tools. So let's get started. So firstly we're going to come into our item init class and just let this load for a second. I'm going to zoom in so we can see everything a little bit better. Now, we're just going to register tools in a fairly exact same way, really, as we register any old item. So, we're going to do public static final, registry object. We'll start with the sword. So, as you can see with block item, we did a block item, and with normal items, we just do item. So, with a sword, I'm sure you can guess that it would just be sword item, and I'll call this example sword, and we're going to call this add to tab method again, so we can just add this to our creative tab. But obviously you don't need to do that if you're not adding it to the creative tab, and this will just be called example sword. Once again, no special characters, no spaces, etc, etc. So we'll do a supplier of a new, you guessed it, sword item. And you can see this asks for a few things. So the first thing it asks for is the tier. So for now I'm just going to put null, but we'll change that later. Then it wants an integer, which I believe is the damage. However, we can check. So if we come into sword item, and if you look at this integer here, you'll see that this is an attack damage. And yes, so we can put in an attack damage. This is on addition to the attack damage bonus that we'll specify later. But I'm just going to say 7 for now. And then the next thing it wants is this, which if we look here is the attack speed. So we can put that in there as well. I'm going to put, say, 2 for that. 2.5 we'll go with. And then it also wants the properties as we usually do define. So we'll just say a new item.properties, and you can add any properties that you want on top of that. There's no particular properties that I want to add, so I'm not going to worry about that. Now we just need to do this for all of the tools. So this is going to be pretty much the same for all of them. So I'm just going to copy paste. Okay, there we go. So that is all of the tools. Now, what we do need to do, however, is we need to fix these nulls here. So what I like to do is create a new package inside of my init package. And generally, I like to just call this like util, because there's going to be some utility stuff. But you can call it really whatever you want. I guess actually you could just call it tiers. That might be better. In fact, yeah, that's what we'll do. We'll do that for now. And I'm just going to call this, I'm going to call it tutorial mod tiers. And this is just going to need a public static final forge tier. And this will be the name of our tier. So mine is just going to be an example tier. And that'll be equal to a new forge tier. And this is going to ask for a bunch of different stuff. So if we look at here, you can see all of the different things that it wants. First of all, we have the harvest level. So effectively, this is the level it will harvest things at. For example, wood is 0, stone is 1, iron is 2, diamond is 3, netherite is 4. So if we wanted it above netherite, we would put 5. If we wanted the same as diamond, we would put 3, etc. I'm going to put it the same as netherite, which is 4. Then it's going to want the uses, so this is effectively the durability. I'm going to put something like 1800 for that, which I think is higher than diamond. And then it wants the speed, so this will be the attack speed basically, or it's a bonus to the attack speed. So we specified the attack speed in here, as you can see, but what this effectively is going to do, this speed in here, is it will add a bonus to that speed. I'm going to say that, or I think it's actually more of a baseline. This is the baseline speed. So I'm going to say maybe 1.5 will do. And then what does it want after that? So it wants the attack damage bonus. So this is the bonus that's added to the attack damage. Or once again, it's more of a baseline really. I'm going to put, let's see, I'm going to put like 7. I don't know. These are just random values that I'm putting in here. Obviously, if you're making this an actual mod, then you would be more careful about what values you put in. But since this is just, you know, an example, it doesn't really matter what values I put in here. You'll see it then wants the enchantment value. So this is effectively how enchantable it is. So the enchantability, if you will. For vanilla, they put some really weird values. In fact, you can see what vanilla puts for some of these values if you want. So if you come into tier here, and then we go to implementations, and we look in the tiers class, you can see here are all of the vanilla tiers. So for example, in enchantability, which one of these is enchantability? Enchantment value, here we go. So that's this one, which is this integer here. So that means that the enchantability for all of these is going to be this number right here. So these are actually really low enchantabilities. I believe armor actually has higher enchantabilities than that, because these seem quite low. I'm going to put, I guess, something close to that then, since this is for tools as well. I'm going to put maybe 20 for the enchantability. And then it wants us to specify a tag. So let's go back into that tiers class again. Let's see what they do for the tag. So you see the vanilla actually doesn't have a tag. However, Forge has added this method down here for the tag. So let's see what this does. You can see this calls Forge hooks get tag from vanilla tier. So what this tag is, as you can see here, is it's effectively the tag that is used for when we did the loot tables in the block tutorial. If you remember, we created the needs and then the material tool. So we can actually come into our data and we can see that in here. We made needs iron tool. So this is effectively the tag we're going to be creating. And you can create your own tag for that, which makes it fairly simple. So if we come into, say, let's go into this one. So needs gold tool. And effectively, we just want to create this. Actually, I like to create my own class for this. So I call this tag init. Once again, this isn't really a registry, but we can still use init because it is an initialization of a tag. And I'm basically going to copy paste that in here and call it needs example tool. Now this tag method doesn't exist, however we can go ahead and actually copy that from here, and as long as we change this Forge to our mod ID, and we just need to change gold to example again, so that means we can now create a tag right in data, and this would be in new directory tutorial mod. It would be in then tags and then blocks. And inside of here, you would create a new file for needs underscore example underscore tool dot JSON. And effectively, you would just do the exact same thing in here as we did with the vanilla ones and with the Forge ones as well. You would just put your block in here for what you want to work on this tool. So I might want to say with the example level tool, I want to say it should work for example block, and then boom, that would work. So I'll leave that in there. We don't actually need that, but I'll leave it in there just to show you how you could use that if you wanted. And this is basically all we'll need for that. And now that I think of it, we might as well make our tiers and init as well. So let's just do that. Let's call this tier init. And I'll move that back into the init package. And also we can now define our tag in here. So we can do tag init.needsExampleTool. And you'll see there's one final thing in here that we do need, which is a supplier of ingredient. And that's effectively the ingredient that will be used to repair these tools. So we just do a supplier of ingredient dot of, and you'll see inside of here we can pass a bunch of different things. So we can pass item likes, so items or blocks, and we can pass item stacks. You can also pass in a tag here. So as you can see, we just created this tag, so you can create other tags for other things. So you could also pass in vanilla tags into that, of course, and you could also pass stream of item stacks. Generally, what I would like to do with this is just simply do, say, item init dot example item colon get, because we need to pass it the item like. But what we're actually doing here, I believe, is no, that's fine. So yeah, this is once again a method reference as we used before, and that just gets us what we need for that. So hopefully that's not too complicated. I think that's fairly simple, but we're just going to now use this back in our item init. So we'll come in here and we'll change these nulls to tier init dot example. Just going to copy paste that and put them in here. Now I should say, you obviously wouldn't have the same values for all of these tools, right? We've got 7 and 2.5 in all of them. You would have different values for each tool, right? Your hoe is not going to have the same damage and speed as your sword. That's something you would definitely change. However, I don't feel like it's worth me going through and changing those, so I'm going to leave them like that. But obviously, once again, if you are making your own mod, which if you're following these tutorials, I assume you are, you would make sure that you do change those differently for each tool. Otherwise, that would be a bit weird. Okay, next, let's do the armor. So the armor is going to be pretty much exactly the same as this. So we're going, once again, going to want public static final registry object. Now this will be of type armor item, so there isn't a specific class for each armor, which makes it much simpler, of course. And we'll start with the helmet. So example helmet is equal, we'll once again call add to tab, so it gets added to our creative tab, and we'll do items.register example helmet, and we'll do a supplier of a new armor item. Now let's see what it wants in here. So it first wants an armor material, which once again we'll put null for now, and then it wants an armor item dot type. So let's see what that is. So let's do armor item dot type, and you'll see this is effectively going to be the specific slot that you want this armor to be able to work in, right? So it's effectively what used to be called an equipment slot. So for the helmet, we'll obviously just put helmet, and then finally we just want the item properties again. I don't want anything special for those, so I'm just going to leave them basically blank. And then we need to do this for the chest plate, the leggings, and the boots. So I'm going to go ahead and go through all of those. Okay, there we go. So I've gone through all of these and I've changed them to change the armor type, the name, and obviously the name here as well. And that's all of those done. So now we just need to replace these nulls, and that should be pretty much it. So what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to create an armor material class that will effectively represent this forge tier class that we had for our tiers. So I'm going to create a new class inside of our tiers package, and I'm just going to call this mod armor material, and this will implement armor material. And we're going to want a bunch of different things in here. So first of all, let's implement all of the methods that it wants us to implement. And then we're going to make some variables that will fit all of these methods. So first of all, we're going to want a private final int array. And this will be called durability for type. And then we're going to want, once again, private final int array. And this will be defense for type. Okay, and then we're going to want a private final int and I'll call this enchant ability, or basically the enchantment value. And then we're going to want a sound event, which is for the equipping sound. So a private final sound event, equip sound. Then we're going to want the repair material. So we want a private final supplier of ingredient, and this will be the repair material. Then we're going to want the name. So this will be a private final string name. And then we're going to want the toughness. So private final float toughness. And then we're also going to want a private final float knockback resistance. Okay, then we're just going to want to make a constructor which is able to do all of these fields. So I'm just going to do this with IntelliJ. I'm going to go generate, I'm going to go constructor, and OK. And you'll see that creates a constructor for all of these different things. One thing you might want to do really is use a builder pattern for these. It might just be a little bit easier if you do that. One thing I will just do, however, for the name is I'm going to do tutorial mod id plus colon plus and then name. And that just means we don't have to define that every single time we create a new material. It just makes it a bit easier for us. Okay, let's go through all of these methods and make sure they return the correct variable here. So first of all, I'm just going to rename some of these parameters as well. So rename those to type, and we'll just return this dot durability for type, square brackets, type dot ordinal. And we'll do the same for the defense as well. So get defense for type, type dot ordinal. Then for the enchantment value, it's just this dot enchantability. Equip sound is this dot equip sound. Make sure you return the variable and not the method, by the way. You can accidentally very easily just end up returning the actual method itself, right? If you accidentally did that, that wouldn't work. That'd be recursive, so you need to make sure you do return the variable. It may sound obvious to some, but trust me, it's a very easy mistake to make. We return the repair material.get for that one, because it's a supplier, of course. Then for the name, we just do return this dot name. This is actually somewhere where we could do like tutorial mod hit in here instead of in the constructor. In fact, yeah, let's do that in here instead. I think that's just a bit easier to understand. Toughness, we just return this dot toughness, and knockback resistance, we return this dot knockback resistance. Fantastic, and that is our mod armor material class done. So now we can create a new class in our init for armor material init, and we're going to want, once again, public static final. This will be a mod armor material, and I'll call it example. This will just simply be equal to a new, a new mod armor material. And then we just need to put those parameters in. So first of all, it was the durability for type. So we want a new int array, and we need to specify what it would be for each slot. So we'll start with, say, 400. So that's going to be the boots. Or wait, is it going to be the boots? Let's just see this type. What does it start with? So it starts with the helmet, then the chest plate, then the leggings, then the boots. So what we need to do is start with the helmet then. So I'm going to say 500 for the helmet. I'm going to say 1200 for the chest plate. I'm going to say 600 for the leggings, and I'm going to say 400 for the boots. Then we're going to want the defense, or the protection, you could say, for each of those slots as well. So once again, we're going to want a new int array. We'll start with the helmet once again. So I'm going to say 11. I'm going to say 16. I'm going to say 15. And then I'm going to say 13. By the way, I should mention I'm just getting these from my 1.19.3 tutorial mod, so that I don't have to come up with them on the spot. It's just much easier to copy values that I've already come up with. Then we want the enchantability. Now once again we can look at the vanilla values here. If we just go armor material, let's just go all places and armor materials. By the way, to bring up that menu, you press double shift twice, and if you want to view like vanilla files, you just press include project non-project items, and you'll see that index is like vanilla stuff as well. You can also, I think, do it like 4 times and it will automatically bring up non-project items. It's just an interesting thing. Okay, let's see. So if we come into here, let's go through these and see. So it is this number here. So this is the enchantability. I'm just going to do the same as what I had for tools then. So if we come into tier init, you can see for the enchantment value I used 20. We're just going to do the same thing, 20. Then the next thing we want is the equipment sound. So this is the sound that will be played when you equip your armor. I'm just going to do sound events, my bad. And then you have all these armor equip sounds. You can choose whatever sound you want. It doesn't actually have to be an armor equipment sound. So obviously feel free to choose any of these. I'm just going to choose a random sound that I think will be quite goofy. Let's go with Fox Teleport. Didn't know foxes have a sound for teleporting, but let's choose that. That will do. Okay, the next thing we want is, let's have a look, hover over it. We have the repair material. So this is just going to be exactly the same as what I had for the tools. So I'm just going to do, once again, item init dot example item colon get. Then the next thing is the name. So mine will just be example. And then the next thing is the toughness. So obviously most armor doesn't have toughness. I'm just going to say like 0.25. I don't really understand toughness, to be honest. So I'm just going to put 0.25. I think there's like some complex equation that you can use for toughness, but I'm not sure. And then finally we have the knockback resistance. If you don't want knockback resistance, obviously just put 0. Let's put something in here, 0.15, I don't know. Okay, perfect. So let's just use this in here now. So armor material init dot example, and copy paste these into all of here, and then we can just do the JSONs and everything. So let's come into the resources, assets tutorial mod. Let's do the lang. Now I'm going to hope that Copilot can actually do this for me rather than having to type all these out, but we'll see. So we'll start with the tools. So item.tutorial mod.example_sword. Copilot will just auto complete these all for me. It's always quite helpful when it does that, but that's all well and dandy. Okay, so once you've done your language file, we can go ahead and create the model files for each of these. So I'm just going to copy example item and call it example sword and rename it to example sword. And since this is a tool, we're going to want to use handheld as the parent model here instead of generated. And we're just going to want to copy paste this for all of the tools and for all of the armor. Okay, so I've done all of the tools. We also need to do the armor. This is just going to be exactly the same as the normal items, right? We don't use the handheld for this, we just use everything normal. So we'll just put in helmets, and that's all we need to change for these. Alright, so finally we just need to do all of the texture files. So I've already made these. I'm just going to copy paste all of them in, and boom, that's all of our textures. Now we are also going to want a texture for the actual in-game model of the armor as well. So we're going to create a new folder or new directory inside of our textures for models, and inside of there we're going to want a new directory for armor, and inside of there we're going to need a layer 1 and a layer 2. Now the name of these layers will depend on whatever you called your armor material. So you see that in our armor material init, we called it example. So that means that our texture files will need to be called example underscore layer underscore 1.png and also example layer 2.png. So those will need to be the names of the textures. Okay, so fantastic. So all we will want to do now is we'll want to run the game and test it out. So let's do that. Alright, so I have an error, and you'll see it says down here, exception initializer error. That's the one that shows up. However, if we look down here, we can actually see the proper error that it says duplicate registration example item. Initially, I was a bit confused because I haven't registered multiple example items, but it actually turns out in the example sword here, I forgot to rename it to example sword, so it was still saying example item. And obviously if we go ahead and run that now, we shouldn't get that error come back up. I was a little bit confused there for why that happened. Just make sure that you have everything as a different name. Obviously if you have multiple things registered as the same name, then you're going to have the same sort of problem come up. But yeah, you can see that works now. So if we just load into the world as well, we should see everything works. And we can also just check for texture errors, just in case I messed something up, because it's very easy to accidentally make a typo in textures, but it all looks okay. I think everything's fine. So we'll come into the game. Here we go. Let's just go full screen here. And we should see they're automatically added to our tab because we did the tab thing. So let's first put the armor on. We can see it has all these different stats that we set. And we should be able to equip them, which we can. And you see it has the correct texture in there as well. So I'm just going to place these all on like that. And boom, that's armor. Lovely. And it should also have the equip sound, which I can't hear because I don't have my headphones on, but I can see that there is audio coming out when I play them, so I don't know what that sounds like, but I'm sure it's very interesting for you. And we also have our tools in here as well. So yeah, I hope you guys found this tutorial useful, and obviously if you did, please do be sure to give it a like and subscribe as well. And yeah, I'll see you in the next tutorial. Goodbye.